Hello everyone. This is the 10th part of the story, Marvel Unlimited Skills, I Can Download. Chapter 71, Attack. From the top of the Stark building, lights bursted towards the sky, gathering together to form a massive rift. And meanwhile, at that moment, Iron Man, who had just finished putting on his latest armor, froze in place after taking a look at the screen. Damn! Iron Man could only curse as he looked at the black specks that were pouring out from the rift. Those black specks were naturally the Chitauri's army, and what made matters worse was that there seemed to be hundreds of thousands of them still behind that rift, itching to climb out. The moment he saw this scene, Iron Man instantly understood that Loki's plan had been a success. And Loki, who was currently in a fight with Bruce, had also noticed this, and an insane-like smile was instantly etched on his face. Do you see that? That is the consequence of offending a god. After all, I am a being that you are unable to understand, human. And now, this entire planet Earth will get its due course. Loki shouted triumphantly towards Bruce. He then turned to look at him, as he was eager to see the horrified expression on his face. However, he was bound to be disappointed, because as it stood, Bruce's expression hadn't changed at all. In fact, one could even notice a flash of indistinct excitement in his eyes. What the hell is with this guy? Loki thought. Bruce completely ignored him and quickly shot out a massive amount of spiderwebs towards Loki, wrapping him up like a dumpling. Due to the density of the web, Loki was unable to break free for the moment. You damned Earthling! What are you planning to do? Loki had almost lost control, as Bruce's methods that were seemingly endless had given him a lot of trouble. However, Bruce had already lost all interest in Loki, and at this moment, he put on his armor and flew out of the area with haste. Having just finished his battle with Loki, he earned another 20 points of energy value. But compared to those meager 20 points, he had a better option. This was of course referring to killing the endless amounts of Chitauris that were emerging from the sky. Stark, go on the ground and evacuate the crowd. Leave these aliens to me for the moment. Through the intercom, Bruce quickly got in touch with Iron Man. At this moment, Iron Man, who was fighting in the sky, turned around and looked at the rioting crowd on the ground before instantly saying, "Okay, but be careful." Bruce's face revealed a smile. He could only wonder now how much energy value these Chitauri would bring him. There was one thing he was certain of, however, and that was that when the quantity reached a certain level, a qualitative change would occur. And to that end, he was planning on killing all the Chitauris in front of him, not leaving out a single one. The Chitauri. Their science and technology were very advanced, while their bodies themselves were also a kind of mechanical symbiont. However, as separate individuals, they didn't have the capability to take action alone, as they would have had to obtain energy from the mothership through the other side of the rift first in order to be able to move. After figuring that out, Bruce made his move, instantly locking on to dozens of Chitauri and shooting out dozens of small missiles from his suit. Boom, boom, boom. The Chitauri he had locked onto were all instantly killed by his missiles, one by one. Beep, congratulations, you have killed the enemy and have obtained 1 point of energy value. Beep, congratulations, you have killed the enemy and have obtained 1 point of energy value. The system's notifications were like music to his ears, making Bruce happier by the second. 1 Chitauri was equal to a single point of energy value, and after considering the amount of Chitauri there were, the harvest this time would be out of his wildest imaginations. Bruce, what's the situation now? Just then, Captain America's voice came through the intercom. Before this, they had tuned their intercoms to the same channel so that they could communicate with each other better. Captain, Loki has opened the rift, and a group of alien troops are landing on Earth. Our situation is very critical. Bruce's quick reply made Captain America feel the urgency of the situation at the current moment. After saying that, Bruce no longer replied. He instead rushed towards the sky and began to unceasingly slaughter any Chitauri he laid his eyes upon. And fortunately for him, the energy of the system was endless, so he needn't worry about running out of energy in the middle of battle. However, the drawback to this was that he could only take back the armor into the system warehouse in order for it to be replenished and restored. He took a look around, and every Chitauri he saw was a point of energy value in his eyes, so how could Bruce stop his massacre anytime soon? "Captain, I'll plug the gap alone." Bruce's choice of words made Captain America know that he was unable to command the man. Bruce didn't really care about the delicacy of the situation, he just wanted to get more energy value out of this war. As Bruce's attack power was too strong, he alone had stopped at least half of the Chitauri for a long time. And due to his antics, the Chitauri couldn't easily make it to the ground. However, there was still that other half of the Chitauri army that managed to land on the ground, and they quickly rushed towards any human they saw, beginning a massacre of their own. Bruce noticed the situation on the ground, but he didn't care. His current goal was to kill as much Chitauri as he could and obtain enough energy value to last him for a while. Boom! Boom! The entire sky was filled with explosions as Bruce continued harvesting the lives of the endless Chitauri. The biggest advantage Bruce had on the battlefield was that he owned the Spidey sense ability, which made him quite a stark contrast to Iron Man, who was constantly getting hit by the Chitauri. He could predict the enemy's attacks beforehand and take the necessary precautions. This guy. Why didn't I know he was so powerful before? Hawkeye's expression changed as he looked at Bruce, who was continually slaughtering the enemy in the sky. Before this all happened, when he first met Bruce, he could recall that the latter was only a level 3 agent. However now, it seemed that Bruce had reached an extremely terrifying level of power, to the point that even he himself couldn't win against Bruce now. Leave your questions for later. We have to act first. After finishing those words, Captain America quickly began to make a battle plan. Although they were really small in number, each one of them was quite powerful. Hawkeye and Black Widow nodded, and the First New York War had officially raised its curtain. Meanwhile, in the sky, although the Chitauri were frequently bombarded by Bruce's fierce firepower, they were truly too many in number, which made it hard for Bruce to kill them all. And as the number of Chitauri continued to increase, the pressure on Bruce was slowly beginning to pile up. But despite that, Bruce was getting more and more excited the more pressure was on him. Every single Chitauri was just energy value in his eyes. What was there to be afraid of? Look! What's that? The Black Widow pointed to the sky, as a huge alien creature appeared, but what truly shocked them was its huge body that was just as big as a building. Meanwhile on the ground, the crowd sped up their escape when they saw that massive creature. The place had completely been reduced to hell. Many innocent people died in the war. As for how many they were, even Iron Man and the captain didn't know. We have to stop that big creature first. Once it lands on the ground, it will cause even greater losses. Iron Man said, his face quickly growing darker. At that exact moment, Bruce controlled the armor on his body and struck the huge alien creature. Boom! Countless explosions echoed out, as the giant creature took all of Bruce's firepower head-on. When dealing with such an enormous creature, Bruce chose to use weapons of mass destruction. At this moment, Captain America and the others saw that Bruce had awe-inspiringly killed the alien creature in mere seconds. To the rest of them, it seemed that they were just the same as ordinary folks when compared to Bruce. Bruce ignored their shock as there was only one thought in his mind right now, and that was to kill, kill, kill. On the ground, the first Avengers had finally gathered, and they returned to focusing on their battle plan, no longer paying Bruce any attention. This was mostly because the captain already knew that he could no longer order Bruce around. Hulk, Thor, Captain America, Iron Man, Black Widow, Hawkeye and etc. They had all gathered here at this moment, and this was the signal that a famous war from the Marvel movies had officially started. Chapter 72, Shock and Nuclear. Although the early Avengers were not as powerful as the ones shown in the later movies, at the very least, there were three big shots here at present. Under Captain America's commands, their plan went in perfect order. Bruce's continued firepower in the sky reduced a lot of pressure on the ground. The two members with the most powerful combat capabilities of the early Avengers were Hulk and Thor. Hulk owned such great strength, moreover, his skin was so indestructible that almost no attack could crack it. His strength alone could only be owned by war beasts, it was so terrifying. As for Thor, he by himself was powerful enough, plus, with his ability to control lightning. In just a short period of time, he directly killed hundreds of Shitori. This made Bruce feel extremely envious. The skill of controlling lightning was indeed very powerful. And so, with the goal of downloading this skill, Bruce started to slaughter the Shitori even more crazily in order to collect enough energy value. Only in this way could he obtain more powerful skills. Moreover, going by his guess, the integration of the function of skills would turn on once the plot of the Marvel's The Avengers was over. This was his most wishful function. It could integrate all of his present skills. This would ensure that he could become more powerful. As time went on, the fighting became more and more intense. The huge alien creatures were constantly coming through the portal and brought destruction in its wake throughout New York City. No one knew exactly how many people died in this war. After all this was over, this New York war will have a huge impact on the whole of the city. Of course, none of this had much to do with Bruce. He didn't really care as to how many people would die today. As the fighting grew more, the cooperation of the Avengers unit also became more and more tacit. Amongst them, Thor was the best. His lightning powers were indeed extremely useful as he was also the one killing the most enemies in exception to Bruce. "Stark, did you give Bruce that armor?" Thor asked. He was shocked by Bruce, who was killing Shitori in the air. This was, in fact, unilateral slaughter. Moreover, it seemed that the guy never grew tired. No, his armor was developed by himself. Maybe this is his super skill. Iron Man replied. As all of the first Avengers thought that Bruce had his own super skill. Just exactly what the super skill entailed, they didn't know. But anyways, what Bruce did to relieve their combat stress was more than enough for them at present. Now, the battlefields had formed 4 areas. The first was Hulk. He was constantly colliding the various buildings. His strength was extremely great, however, he could only hit them one by one. The second was Iron Man. His armor allowed him great combat power. However, he didn't have the spidey sense like Bruce, plus the Shitori were really too crazy as they attack with the intent of giving their lives. This was why in the process, Iron Man's armor was heavily damaged. The next was Thor. His strength was indeed powerful. He controlled lightning just like God would do and was tireless because of the Aesir bloodline. Plus, to him, these Shitori were only ordinary soldiers. On the battlefield, the number of enemies that he killed was only second to Bruce. The last, of course, was Bruce. The missiles and bullets of his armor had been used up. At present, he could only shoot energy beams. Thankfully, these energy beams were the most powerful killing methods of Bruce's armor. There weren't any Shitori that could resist against them. They would basically be killed in one hit. Seeing these continuous energy beams, Iron Man couldn't help but ask him, "Bruce, can you tell me, what's your energy source? Why does it seem endless?" This was what made Iron Man, Iron Man. His thirst for knowledge and curiosity for such things. The energy source of his armor came from the arc reactor. The energy of the arc reactor also came from the Tesseract. Although it contained terrifying energy, it also dried up too fast with a lot of consumption. It needed to be restored. At present, his armor had been greatly damaged. While looking at Bruce's reckless launch of energy beams, he felt a bit envious. Such an inexhaustible source of energy. This was what every scientist and inventor wanted. "Mr. Stark, watch your back." After a short moment Bruce had just finished speaking, a Shitori appeared behind Iron Man. Iron Man couldn't respond instantly and he was hit. Thankfully, his armor was able to protect him well and he only fell to the ground. After so, he stood up and started to fight back. Bruce certainly wouldn't tell him the true energy source in his armor. This was his biggest secret and his greatest advantage. With the number of people present, only Bruce was able to stay at his peak state at all times. "There are too many Shitori here, the rest of us also have to act." Captain America's voice came. If the fight continued like this, Bruce, Iron Man, Thor, and Hulk would soon run out of steam. They had to finish this quickly. Everyone was aware of this while Black Widow had already begun her actions at this time. Bruce frowned slightly as he looked at the superheroes below him. He hadn't killed enough Shitoris. Although the energy values that he earned so far were quite a lot, he was still not satisfied. Whether it be Thor or Hulk, downloading their skills required an amazing amount of energy values. Even with this thought, he knew that there would be an end to the war anyways. What he could do for now was just to lengthen the fight and accumulate more energy values. Boom! Boom! A mass of the Chitauri army appeared again. Their numbers had apparently increased a lot more this time. Sooner or later the Avengers' strength would run out. Black Widow and others had nearly reached their limit. Although all of them were superheroes, they didn't have the ability to face an army of hundreds of thousands of soldiers alone. Maybe Thor was able to, but if the situation went on like this, the Chitauri would obviously cause more and more damage. This was what they didn't want to face. I just received information from Fury. The Congress have decided to use nuclear weapons. At the moment Iron Man's voice came, it shocked everyone in the battle. No one present here didn't know the power of nuclear weapons. Once such a weapon was launched, it would definitely level New York City. I'm going to Fury, you guys find a way to close the rift. Iron Man flew away directly as Captain America and others continued to fight. Bruce continued to stay in the sky and hasten his slaughter of the Chitauri. As per what happened in the movie, the Congress really decided to use nuclear weapons. What a stupid group of people. Bruce sneered. This is America, the people at the top were always opinionated. However, Bruce really didn't care whether or not the bomb exploded, it had nothing to do with him. The life and death of the people here weren't related to him. The only thing he needed to do was to make himself more powerful. After looking at Iron Man's departure, there weren't any changes to Bruce's expression, although once the nuclear bomb exploded, he would undeniably also be affected. At this moment, Black Widow climbed to the top of Stark Building. It seemed that the war would end soon. Boom! Boom! Bruce continued to look calm as he continued to kill as much Chitauri as he possibly could. At this moment, his energy values slowly grew. The New York War was only a springboard for Bruce to become stronger. Chapter 73, End and Beginning. This time, Bruce obtained a lot of energy value. However, he was still not fully satisfied despite the war nearing its end. Surely, he couldn't forcefully stop what they were doing, otherwise, he would affect the progress of the future subsequent plots. Bruce, come here with us. At this moment, Black Widow's voice came. Presently, she was holding on to Loki's scepter and was preparing to close the equipment that was opening the rift. Once the equipment was successfully shut down, the Chitauri could no longer enter Earth. After hearing her words, Bruce sighed slightly with reluctance. All of these were energy values. However, there was nothing he could do, the war was destined to end. After a short moment, he quickly flew to the Stark Building's top floor without any hesitation. In the distance, Iron Man could be seen carrying the fired nuclear bomb. He forcibly reversed the launch track of the nuclear bomb and wanted to send the nuclear bomb into the rift through the portal. After seeing Iron Man enter the rift, Black Widow directly closed the equipment that was maintaining the portal. The light disappeared instantly as the rift was also slowly closing at this time. Bruce didn't look back, and instead, he slowly moved to where Loki was. Since he could no longer hunt the Chitauri, then he could only first clear up the chief culprit to this incident, Loki. At this moment, Loki had already quietly returned to Stark's office again. He found it difficult to believe what had happened, the current situation far exceeded his imagination. During Loki's reverie, Bruce appeared in front of him abruptly. Bang! Loki's face changed greatly. Although now that he had lost his scepter, his strength was still there. After all, he was the descendant of the giants of Jotunheim. After a quick moment, Loki was in a melee against Bruce. However, now that Bruce's strength was too strong, Loki's failure was doomed to happen. Although at present, Loki hadn't really fallen into any disadvantages under Bruce's various attack methods, it was simply because melee combat wasn't what Loki was good at. At this moment, Loki pulled out two daggers and directly attacked Bruce. Bruce's eyes flashed, as his spidey sense turned on. Loki's movements were captured by him in all directions. Boom! With one punch, Loki was down on the ground. The strong pain he was currently feeling made him want to vomit out blood. After all, he didn't have the bloodline of the Aesir, his body couldn't match with Thor's. At this time, all of these Avengers came into the office. They silently watched Bruce and Loki's fight. There was no sense of wariness in their eyes. "Thor, he's your brother, don't you intend to take part in it?" Captain America looked at Thor and pointed at Loki, who was fighting Bruce. "I already said that he was adopted." Thor was indifferent, and in his eyes, he felt that his younger brother should be taught a hard lesson. Since Shatori's army couldn't successfully land on Earth, it was truly a heavy hit to Loki. Especially now that there were so many people watching him here, it made him unable to concentrate on the fight at all. "Enough! I am a god. You, an Earthman, would never understand what a god is. All of you are just ants in front of me." Bang! In an instant, Bruce once again caught Loki and directly grasped Loki's palm with both hands. As per what happened before in the movies, following with what Hulk did, by using his powerful strength, Loki was fiercely thrown to the ground a dozen times again. When looking at this, Captain America and others could even feel that they couldn't stand to look at the poor god. As for Thor, he directly turned back his head. He acted as if he never knew what happened. The entire office's floor was fragmented. Bruce's strength really was too great, as Loki couldn't fight back at all. Loki could only lay on the ground in despair as his eyes were filled with confusion. The Avengers also walked towards Loki at this time. Only now, they knew that the war was truly over. Bruce walked aside, his face maintained the same calm expression as he always wore. After the battle with Loki just now, he once again gained 20 points of energy value. Poor Loki, he got a 3-time lesson in a row by Bruce. This should be unforgettable in the remainder of his life, Bruce thought in his mind. After the events that had transpired, people had begun organizing to clean up the battlefield. Loki's scepter and tesseract were also taken by S.H.I.E.L.D. Bruce stood at the side. He looked at the person who took over Loki's scepter. There was a light in his eyes. All of the people who took over the battlefield were Hydra's members. Before this, he had never seen these people at the Avengers base. These people were all top-level agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. However, they weren't under Nick Fury's jurisdiction. Bruce just kept silent about his thoughts. Only if Hydra took the scepter away would there be the follow-up plots. As for this, Bruce didn't care at all. Although the war was over for the people here, this was just his beginning. "Let's go out and celebrate. Bruce, will you with us?" Black Widow appeared next to Bruce with a smile on her face. After the war today, Bruce's performance had made her look at him impressively and with interest. With only him in the sky alone, he managed to stop thousands of the Shatori's army. No one else was able to do it. "I won't go, I have something else to do." Bruce smiled, clearly not interested in attending. "Thank you for your help this time." Captain America stood beside Bruce, thanking him. Bruce didn't respond too much and just said that this was what he was supposed to do. After this, they would return to the Avengers base. Just then, Bruce's mind heard the system's voice. "Beep, congratulations to the host for completing the plot of Marvel's The Avengers, turning on the function of skill integration. Beep, congratulations to the host for completing the plot of the Avengers Alliance, starting the mission function. Beep, the mission is on. Would the host please kill the Mandarin and Dr. Aldrich Killian within 1 month?" The system's sound made Bruce's eyes fill with light. Sure enough, after completing the current plot, the system turned on the skill integration and mission function. Skill integration allowed him to merge his existing skills in order to obtain more powerful ones. For the mission function, as the name suggests, only by completing the missions assigned by the system could he get additional rewards. With this, in addition to fighting, he has found another way to obtain energy value. He speculated that by completing the system's task, he would be able to obtain more energy value than he would in combat. This was almost God's gift the system had gifted him. This time, the information the mission system gave him was about the follow-up plot in the Marvel series movies. In the Marvel series movies, the plot of Marvel's The Avengers was followed by the plot of Iron Man 3. As he could recall in the story of Iron Man 3, the Mandarin and Dr. Aldrich Killian were the evil backstage manipulators. Simply put, by killing these two people, Iron Man 3's plot was complete. Now, Bruce wasn't only going to follow the development of the plot, but he could also find a way to promote it. As long as the plot continues, he could then get more powerful missions. After thinking of this, Bruce's smile seemed to grow wider. The development of Marvel's plot would be led by him in the future. He would download the needed skills continuously and then integrate these skills by using his energy value. Maybe, in the end, he will become the only god in the Marvel world. Chapter 74, One Click. Bruce earned a bumper harvest during the New York War. Which is why right now, he couldn't wait to use his energy values to improve his abilities again. At this moment, Captain America and S.H.I.E.L.D. were in transition because of the work. He didn't leave here directly. Taking the free time, Bruce directly opened the system to check his information and how much energy value he obtained from the recent skirmish. Name, Bruce Lite. Identity, Level 6 Agent. Skill, Marksman, Anti-Aging Gene, Spider Telepathy, Regeneration Ability, Acer's Longevity Gene, Virus and Disease Immunity, Super Serum Gene, Super Endurance, Body and Shield Oneness, Adsorbent Ability, Super Speed, Super Strength, Immune Mind Control, Self-Healing, Hand Strengthening, Super Vision, Pig Iron Body, Super Fighting Technique, Proficiency in Saber, Proficient in Firearms, Covert Tracking. Warehouse, Super Vibranium Shield, Mark 8 Armor. Balance, 200 WUSD. Energy value, 5,700 points, can be used for one-click download, one-click upgrade. This battle actually netted Bruce 5,700 points worth of energy value. Even if it was Bruce himself, he too didn't know how much levels of improvement these energy values would bring him. So much energy value. He didn't know how to spend them. However, now Bruce has two options to choose from. He can either choose from Hulk or Thor. Both skills of these two men could be said to be quite powerful. After all, they had easily exceeded human limits. The problem still lied here: how does he choose? It was indeed a difficult question for Bruce. Sadly, he could only choose one of their skills to download. If he wanted to download more, then his energy value would fall short. After all, the requirement of the energy value for each of their skills was too much. In actuality, Bruce had another choice and could also choose Loki's magic power. After all, Loki was the so-called most powerful sorcerer in Asgard. Just when he thought of Loki's magical prowess, Bruce suddenly thought back to another man at the same time. Doctor Strange. During the story of Thor 3, Ragnarok, he could recall that the most powerful sorcerer in Asgard was actually being played around by Doctor Strange. At that time, even if Thor also didn't react in time, Doctor Strange, the Sorcerer Supreme, he could be called the most powerful sorcerer in the Marvel series movies. There wasn't any other sorcerer that could match him. Of course, this was only in the movie, not in the comics. Especially when the Doctor wore the Time Gem, he would become a bit too powerful. Of course, since he was only a sorcerer, melee fights were still considered his weakness. However, even with this minor inconvenience, Doctor Strange was definitely one of the strongest heroes in the Marvel movies. With this idea in mind, Bruce quickly gave up Loki's magic power and turned towards Doctor Strange's skill set as it was a better choice. As for Hulk, Bruce also wanted to choose his abilities. Hulk's body owned the almost indestructible skin. Even Thor himself almost couldn't hurt him at all. If he owned Hulk's body, then neither bullets nor artillery could harm him. Such a skill was indeed terrifying. However, even if he had this skill, the defense was amazing, but the power/strength it showcased wasn't enough. Just by having strong defense without enough strength would be a chicken rib. Everyone already knows how powerful Hulk is. But in the plots of Avengers, Infinity War, it was seen that even when Thanos didn't wear the glove, he still easily beat Hulk in hand-to-hand combat. Of course, one could argue that it was because Hulk wasn't angry enough at that time. But since Hulk's strength was born from his anger, then the angrier he got, the more powerful he would be. This was the downside to it, since Bruce didn't want to download this part of his abilities. Moreover, the super vibranium shield's defense was enough for him presently. After ruling both Loki and Hulk out, Bruce then fixated on Thor. After the plot of Avengers 1, Thor would leave Earth temporarily. Once he left, Bruce wouldn't be able to download Thor's skills even if he owned a bigger amount of energy value than now. This is why he must seize the opportunity today. Bruce, let's go together. Iron Man's voice sounded out. At this time, the elevator was full of people, however, only Hulk didn't go with them because the elevator couldn't bear his weight at all. Okay. Bruce walked into the elevator directly. As it so happened, Thor was inside waiting too. At this moment, Loki's mouth had been gagged and he couldn't say even a single word. It wouldn't really have mattered seeing as just a while ago, he had been brutally beat up by Bruce. He wouldn't know what to say even if his mouth wasn't sealed. In his eyes, Bruce was a monster. Especially now, his eyes were clearly emanating fear whenever he glanced at Bruce. Bruce looked at Thor. Thor, I'm sorry, I battered your brother too much just now. Since both of you are brothers, would you blame me? Bruce patted Thor's shoulder with his hand as he said this. Again, I repeat. He was adopted. Thor responded again with emphasis that he had a bad relationship with Loki. The other people in the elevator slightly smiled but said nothing. At this moment, Thor's message appeared in Bruce's mind. Name, Thor. Odinson. Identity, the eldest son of Odin, the god of thunder. Skill, Aesir body, energy value 5W, controlling thunder and lightning, energy value 5000, Aesir's strength, energy value 3000, Aesir's speed, energy value 1500, Aesir's longevity gene, 1000 GB, the Justice Heart, 1000 GB, Mjolnir's approval conditions, Mjolnir, energy value 20W. All of the skills in Thor's arsenal was extremely powerful. Especially the Mjolnir in his hands, the energy value alone was as high as 200,000. If he ever owned Mjolnir, Bruce would immediately become the best superhero. Sadly, the energy value needed was too high, therefore, Bruce had no choice for the time being. Finally, Bruce planned to download the skill of controlling thunder and lightning on Thor. This was what Bruce needed the most right now. After downloading the skill of controlling thunder and lightning, it would heavily complement his present shortcomings. Especially in such a battle that one would fight against many, this skill would help him kill his enemies faster. At that time, it would seem that he could be called a copy of Thor. Without the slightest hesitation, Bruce directly started the download. Beep, the connection was successful. Beep, downloading the skill of controlling thunder and lightning requires 5000 energy value, download. 5000 energy value points, this time, Bruce was definitely going to be a pauper again. Yes. Anyways, improving his own strength was the most important thing right now. Beep, download succeeded. Beep, congratulations to the host for earning the skill of controlling thunder and lightning. With enough energy value, he could one-click download without any waiting time. Exactly at the moment the system's voice sounded out within his mind, Bruce felt the changes in his body. Each one of his cells seemed to have transformed into the thunderbolt and lightning. This feeling coursed through his body instantly. Chapter 75, Hydra. This kind of power was something that Bruce had never touched before. Before this, he had felt the changes in his flesh when he downloaded Black Widow's anti-aging gene and Captain America's super serum gene. However, this time it was different. Bruce could clearly feel that every cell in his body was undergoing metamorphosis. Moreover, it wasn't just any ordinary metamorphosis. Each cell contained a strong electric current, it directly came from his internal organs and then passed towards the exterior. Every cell and pore in Bruce's body was changing under this kind of electric current. Nevertheless, because the current was so small, outsiders couldn't feel anything at all. However, if he wanted to, he could easily release the real power of the thunder and lightning right now. This power of thunder and lightning wasn't merely ordinary electricity, it was extraordinarily similar to the thunder and lightning produced by nature. Whether it be by voltage or power, it was far beyond any ordinary electric current. Bruce was even able to feel that as long as he wanted to, he could immediately let the whole sky darken with the formation of his new abilities. This ability was definitely beyond the realm of humans, it was a true super ability. Although he used more than 5,000 points of energy value due to its cost, it was absolutely worth it. After owning such a strong ability, his strength would definitely increase amazingly. Beep! Just at this moment, the elevator reached the first floor. We plan to go out and celebrate after S.H.I.E.L.D. takes over the Tesseract. Will you come with us? Iron Man sent the invitation to Bruce. In retrospect, Bruce had already become someone at the same level as him. This was what strength brought him. If Bruce was still only a small third-level agent, Iron Man and the other superheroes would have definitely not treated Bruce like this. It was also because of Bruce's performance during this New York war that led Captain America and the others to recognize his capabilities. No, I have other things to do. Bruce's answer had slightly disappointed Hawkeye and the others. However, they didn't force him. After finishing their greeting with Bruce, they left. Bruce looked at their backs as they left the vicinity. After doing so, he readied himself to return to the Avengers base that S.H.I.E.L.D. established secretly before. There were still many things that he needed to do. Are you Bruce? Bruce Lite? Just as Bruce was about to leave, a voice resounded out. It was a white man in a suit. Following behind him were several level 6 or 7 agents. Bruce could easily tell at a glance that these were S.H.I.E.L.D. people. However, he had seen none of these people before. Yes, I am. Bruce looked at the leading white male, his face still kept his ever-calm expression. The lead man seemed to be in a high position. When he looked at Bruce, there was a sense of scrutiny or even disdain in his eyes. Now that Bruce had a close look, he actually knew this person. He was the former director of S.H.I.E.L.D., Alexander Pierce. At the same time, he was also one of Hydra's people. Before this, when S.H.I.E.L.D. destroyed Hydra's organization, some members of Hydra were incorporated and became S.H.I.E.L.D.'s people. However, these people didn't change their nature and became double spies instead. On the outside, they seemed to be S.H.I.E.L.D.'s people, but in actuality, they were still a part of Hydra. Pierce was now a member of the management layer of S.H.I.E.L.D. In S.H.I.E.L.D., the director had great authority. Above the director, there was still the management layer. This was because the members of the management layer could check and balance the director. A good analogy for this was that they were the people behind the president and members of Congress. We've read your information. Come with me now. Pierce didn't even give Bruce a chance to speak. He was prepared to bring Bruce away as quickly as possible. Bruce wanted to fight back, however, he instead immediately calmed down. In his mind, a secret plan formed. Hydra. He might be able to take advantage of them. Soon after, Pierce brought Bruce to the headquarters of S.H.I.E.L.D. I know you're one of Fury's men, but this time, the New York War has made members of the Congress very dissatisfied. You are strong, and there's even the chance that you have a super ability we do not know about. But even then, you still need a backer. After all, Fury has a handle on the Avengers. In the elevator, Pierce's back was facing Bruce. His tone was quite cold when he spoke about these things. Bruce didn't speak at all when he heard this. He already knew that his information and many other things were in the hands of S.H.I.E.L.D. Of course, he didn't mind this. That was because with his current strength, he was completely unafraid of S.H.I.E.L.D. Bruce already guessed what Pierce wanted him to do. You should know my identity by now. You can work for me in the future. As long as you are willing, the future S.H.I.E.L.D. director position can be yours. Trust in me, you would become more than this in the future. I can also guarantee your safety at the same time. Pierce turned around this time. Beside him were more than a dozen level 7 or 8 agents that were surrounding Bruce. Although they just seemed to be ordinary agents, Bruce couldn't be sure that these people didn't own any special abilities. Otherwise, Pierce would have definitely not dared to have faced him like this. This was only a threat. Only after they figured him out would they dare to take action against him. However, Pierce didn't know that Bruce already knew everything. Moreover, the current Bruce was someone these people couldn't deal with anymore. He had a lot of cards in his hand now. Now that they dared threaten him, this meant that they have a certain expectation on exactly how powerful Bruce was. They blocked off Bruce in this small elevator. This was one of their plans to make sure he couldn't use his superiority effectively. This led Bruce's thoughts back to a scene from Captain America 2. At the same time, Bruce was extremely sure that since Pierce had dared to do this, it meant that he was well prepared. Even if he beat these people right now, it may be according to Pierce's plans. Hydra. It may die, but it certainly won't topple over. As long as S.H.I.E.L.D. existed, Hydra would never die. Now that S.H.I.E.L.D. formed the Avengers, in the case that Hydra didn't fight back, they would only become increasingly passive in the future. Since Pierce was doing this right now, this meant that Hydra was aware of this crisis. Before this, his outstanding performance wasn't only noticed by S.H.I.E.L.D.'s executives, but had also made Hydra's people notice himself. In fact, for Bruce, this wasn't a bad thing. What about it? Have you decided? Pierce revealed a smile on his face. It was as if everything was under his control. Fury's powers were enough now that the first Avengers had been formed. If Pierce wanted to compete against these Avengers, he had to find another way. Bruce was his primary goal. From the information he received, Bruce was someone that didn't fully obey S.H.I.E.L.D.'s orders. It was this reason that he tried to rope in Bruce in the first place. Of course, if Bruce didn't join them, they would kill Bruce without hesitation. As for convicting Bruce of doing something illegal, it was an extremely simple thing for them. At this moment, the eyes of dozens of people in the elevator were all on Bruce's body. As soon as they would notice that something was wrong, they would immediately shoot at Bruce. However, Bruce walked towards where Pierce was slowly, and he softly spoke. Hail Hydra. Chapter 76, Hydra's Trust. After that sentence came out of Bruce's mouth, everyone in the room froze in place. Even Pierce was shocked silly and couldn't help but take another look at Bruce. While all of them were indeed Hydra agents, their identity was top secret. Only the men in their group knew that they existed, so how could a mere agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. know information that even the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. didn't know? The men beside Pierce had all been arranged by himself, so he could be absolutely sure that no one knew of their existence. Even Hydra's forces that were still active in the outside world didn't know that they had people undercover in S.H.I.E.L.D., and yet this Bruce had been able to decipher it. He had even figured out their code, which was Hail Hydra. S.H.I.E.L.D. was Hydra's greatest nemesis, and they had irreconcilable contradictions. But despite that, Bruce's previous performance had demonstrated his abilities and they desperately wanted him, so they took the risk this time around and made their move. But him saying Hail Hydra had really surprised them. One of the agents instantly activated the elevator's emergency system, and after a short pause, all of them stared at Bruce. All of their previous actions had been very cautious. That was one of the reasons they were able to operate in S.H.I.E.L.D. in secret for so long without being detected. Who are you? Pierce's eyes revealed his murderous intentions. He had been operating in S.H.I.E.L.D. for a very long time, and he had never been doubted. This was due to his cautiousness, as his identity was of great importance to Hydra. Mr. Pierce, you know the answer to that question, so I can only say so much. As for your previous actions, I believe you should understand my position now, right? The organization has its own plans, and all you have to do is obey. Bruce's expression was very relaxed while saying this, as if he was not afraid of being attacked at all. Since these people had been able to hide in S.H.I.E.L.D. for so long, that was proof that none of them were idiots. Hydra was a very close-knit secretive organization, and even their own members didn't know who was who, as long as they weren't on the same mission. But while this was a risk in itself, it was also because of this that Hydra had been able to exist for such a long time. Can I really trust you? Pierce asked. In fact, he had already subconsciously begun to believe Bruce. After all, they had not revealed their identity, but Bruce had still said the secret code, meaning that Bruce knew exactly who they were. With that, Bruce had not really revealed them, but had instead revealed his own identity, thereby showing that he was a member of their organization. While he was inclined to believe Bruce, he still couldn't get careless, so he could only ask Bruce this way. Whether you trust me or not, that is for you to decide. As for whether you can get my help or not, that also depends solely on your decision. But regardless of that, if we stay here for much longer, there will be problems. Afterwards, Bruce pointed to the monitor on the elevator. At this time, the agent who had pressed the emergency button before had closed it. The elevator's monitor only had a video function, which meant that their previous conversation wasn't recorded. The video function of the elevator could also be turned off after pressing the emergency button again. And as this was Pierce's exclusive elevator, he had the highest authority. "I will arrange a good identity for you in S.H.I.E.L.D. so that you are not restricted by Fury," Pierce said calmly, obviously choosing to believe Bruce. "All right, we will have a chance to see each other again soon enough," Bruce said, and the elevator door opened. Pierce and his agents got out of the way and didn't prevent Bruce from leaving, as they now believed that Bruce was one of their own to some level. After all, the secret code was not something just anyone could know about. "Sir, I didn't expect him to be one of our own people," said one agent, followed by the other agents nodding in succession. "I didn't expect that either, but now since we have one more person on the inside, the next course of action will proceed even more smoothly." "Right, did Rumlow get that thing?" Pierce asked. In fact, the Rumlow he spoke of was also called Crossbones. "He got it, and it will be sent away soon," an agent replied. After hearing his answer, Pierce was relieved. At first, he wanted to get the Tesseract, but the Avengers were too powerful and Fury's people were also there at the time, so they didn't get a chance, otherwise he definitely wouldn't let that opportunity pass. After that, Pierce and his agents dispersed. Very soon, it would be time for Hydra to make its move. Meanwhile, at the same time, Bruce, who had left S.H.I.E.L.D.'s HQ, was preparing to return to the Avengers base. Pierce approaching him this time wasn't too unexpected, as he just wanted him to convert to Hydra. But Bruce had seen through him, and was in control of everything now. Whether it be S.H.I.E.L.D. or Hydra, they were all chess pieces in his hands. The reason he shouted out their secret code this time around was precisely for one of his future plans. The most important reason that he dared to deceive Pierce this time around was that Hydra had been destroyed beforehand, and many of their members' whereabouts had been lost, so Pierce couldn't know if what Bruce had said was true or false. Bruce had found this opportunity and chose to take full advantage of it. As for what he could do with his current position, he already had his own plans. He would be able to utilize Pierce to get information on the whereabouts of Hydra's secret European base. And the reason he wanted to know its location was because Loki's scepter, alongside the Mind Gem, should be there for the time being. Of course, Bruce currently had no intentions towards the Mind Gem, but he did have his crosshairs placed on Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch. Scarlet Witch was a bigger priority for him, as her power came from the Mind Gem. However, the Scarlet Witch had not yet exerted her full power. If he could find the location of that secret base in time, he could download both of their abilities, which he wanted to get his hands on. Especially because now, he wouldn't have to wait until the plot reached the Avengers, Age of Ultron, and could instead arrange this in advance. He could only do this because this was the Marvel movie universe, as in the original books, Quicksilver and the Crimson Witch were both Magneto's children, and he wouldn't have had this opportunity at all. But this all had nothing to do with Bruce. All he needed to do was keep getting stronger. Not long afterwards, Bruce returned to the Avengers base. The plot of Marvel's The Avengers was over, and the next thing he needed to do was to continue developing the plot. As for what the superheroes would do, Bruce didn't care. Now that he didn't have enough energy value left to download anything of real value, he couldn't be bothered with them. "The system has given me the task of killing Mandarin and Dr. Aldrich Killian within 1 month, but they have not yet appeared. This means that it's not a very urgent mission." Right now he was thinking of the overall situation, and what course of action would be the most beneficial to himself. For example, killing Mandarin and Aldrich within 1 month meant that the plot of Iron Man 3 would end in 1 month. As he already knew the sequence of events, he needed to prepare in advance for what came after. "Let's integrate my abilities before I do anything." Finishing the Marvel's The Avengers plot had brought him 2 major system functions, which were system tasks and the ability to integrate his abilities. Between the two of them, the ability integration function was a lot better for him, as he had a lot of abilities, but not all of them had kept up with his fast progress. The integration function would help him discard the abilities that had fallen behind to create a new and more powerful ability. Thinking along those lines, Bruce delved in his thoughts. This time, he would make a massive change. Chapter 77, Integrating Abilities. Now that he owned a lot of abilities, there were a decent amount of similar ones. And going by the information Bruce had previously obtained, integrating multiple abilities of the same type would make the final integrated ability all the more powerful. That was one of the reasons Bruce had decided to leave 600 points of energy value in reserve. With the amount of ordinary abilities he already owned, there was no need to go out of his way to get more, so the required energy value would lessen a bit. With that in mind, Bruce decided that his first integration should be composed of all of his physical abilities related to the body. System, select the similar abilities that fit the following requirements to integrate. Beep, regeneration ability, super serum gene, self-healing, strengthened hands, supervision, adsorbent. Ability, pig iron body are all the physical abilities that fit the requirements and can be integrated. The system's response made Bruce's eyes flash. Although all of the abilities mentioned were different when it came down to the details, they all belonged to the same category. It would be a lie if he said that he wasn't looking forward to what the end result would be after all those abilities were integrated into a single one. System, begin the integration of the previously mentioned abilities. Without any further delay, Bruce chose to integrate them and see what would happen. After all, he couldn't end up with an ability that was worse for him, right? Beep, the integration of the following abilities requires 200 points of energy value. Do you still intend to proceed? Yes. Just as Bruce gave the order, an inexplicable power suddenly poured into Bruce's body. Every cell, pore and blood vessel in his body was undergoing a massive transformation at this moment, as flashes of light poured into Bruce's body. The process of integrating abilities that were directly related to his body was sure to be a long and painful process, because after all, his whole being was undergoing a massive change. And sure enough, Bruce was in horrifying pain at the moment, but he didn't move an inch, doing his best to bear with it. His flesh and blood were squirming, making his entire body give off an extremely creepy vibe that would send shivers down the spine to anyone that saw the scene. He could feel his skin and organs squirm as well, cracking and forming back together one by one, making him feel as if he was reborn at the end of it all. This was a metamorphosis in every sense of the word, not just a mere strengthening of his abilities. Beep, congratulations, the integration has succeeded. Beep, congratulations, you have obtained the demigod body ability. After an unknown amount of time passed and the process had ended, the system's voice once again sounded out in Bruce's mind. All the previous pain he had been enduring disappeared and was instead replaced with an unprecedentedly comfortable sensation. After undergoing all that suffering, he felt as if the gravity of the planet had now only had a very weak influence on him. Bruce could even feel that if he wanted to, he would be able to leap hundreds of meters in the air with only a single step. After snapping out of his revere for his new state, Bruce began to check out the functions of his new ability. The demigod body ability, as the name suggested, made him have a physical body half as powerful as that of a god. With Thor as an example, whose body was a god's body, he was able to withstand Bruce's onslaught of attacks during their first encounter. While his current body was only half as strong as that, Bruce could now not only regenerate broken limbs, survive having his head cut off, he could even regenerate it or reconnect it as if nothing had happened. This meant that no matter how fatal an injury Bruce had sustained, he would be able to recover from it given enough time. While this in itself was not extremely impressive to the current Bruce, the fact that the regeneration speed was extremely fast had made him happy, as it meant that it wouldn't affect his combat power at all because he had infinite energy via the system. Moreover, his demigod body was also top-notch when it came to defensive capability. Even small missiles couldn't break his body's defense, making it infinitely more powerful than his previous pig iron body ability. This was the result of Bruce integrating all of his physical abilities. Seeing the end result of his integration, Bruce was extremely excited. From today onwards, he had officially broken away from the human category by owning a demigod body. Bruce could already foresee that if he could download Thor's Acer body, and then integrate it with his current demigod body, then he could also possess a god-level body. Gods were the most powerful existence in the Marvel World universe, far beyond even Thanos and Odin. They were the true powerhouses. But soon enough, Bruce calmed himself down. He still had a lot of abilities left, and instead of sinking into his delusions for a while longer, he decided to continue to integrate them. Beep, anti-aging gene, Acer's longevity gene, virus and disease immunity, mind control immunity, are all abilities that fit the requirements and can be integrated. The sound of the system sounded out in Bruce's mind once again, and without wasting any more time, he chose to integrate them. Beep, the integration of the following abilities requires 200 points of energy value. Do you still intend to proceed? Yes. And just like before, Bruce answered without hesitation. However, sadly for him, that wasn't the only thing that was getting repeated, as the horrifying pain struck Bruce once again as soon as he said yes. Bruce gritted his teeth and withstood the pain. As long as he could make himself more powerful, he could withstand any amount of pain he possibly could. Beep, congratulations, the integration has succeeded. Beep, congratulations, you have obtained the God's bloodline ability. The system's voice made Bruce excited once again. And rightly so, as after all, he had obtained a second ability that was in the God category, moreover it was a bloodline ability. The power of this particular ability was to make Bruce immune to all diseases, viruses, and mental attacks on Earth. While this did not sound particularly amazing when compared to the effects of the abilities integrated into this one, that was only before making a comparison. For example, all humans of Earth had a mortal body with a mortal bloodline. This kind of bloodline was very weak in the eyes of the high-level creatures of the universe, as a little damage could make a human break. But the God bloodline was very different, as with this bloodline, Bruce could even survive in outer space depending solely on his body, albeit not for prolonged periods of time. This kind of bloodline was way beyond a mortal one, and that was without mentioning its other numerous uses. If a person with cancer obtained this bloodline, they would be cured, simply because of the discrepancy in levels. Almost all the factors that could cause a human to instantly die would be infinitely weakened on Bruce. This was a God bloodline, and it truly was like a difference between a mortal and a god. But Bruce knew that his God bloodline was not a true deity's bloodline, as the sum of his ordinary abilities did not equate to it. If one day he could promote his bloodline to a deity's bloodline, then he would be able to travel in outer space and resist the innumerable amounts of radiation, viruses, curses, just like a real deity. It was one of the most powerful aspects of his system, the fact that he had been given unlimited possibilities. After soaking it in, Bruce calmed down once again and began preparing himself for the third and final integration. Beep, marksman, super endurance, super speed, super strength, superb level fighting technique, saber proficiency, firearms proficiency, covert tracking, are all abilities that fit the requirements and can be integrated. The system's voice made Bruce's eyes shine once again. This time was special, because all of the selected abilities were combat-oriented, and it was because of all of those skills that Bruce could rise to power in such a short amount of time. Once all of those abilities were integrated together, Bruce was absolutely positive that his combat power would skyrocket. And as this was his third time integrating abilities, Bruce had figured out the criteria the system used to detect similar abilities. In his first integration, the criteria was his physical body, in his second, his adaptive capacity. And now in his third integration, the criteria was combat prowess. Beep, the integration of the following abilities requires 200 points of energy value. Do you still intend to proceed? Yes. After using up his last 200 points of energy value, Bruce fell deep into his thoughts. But regardless of that, he could be sure that once the integration of the abilities had succeeded, his new ability would undoubtedly exceed his imagination. The first two integrations had given him two great surprises, and as his third one was formed of even more abilities, he was very curious as to exactly how powerful the new ability would be. Beep, congratulations, the integration has succeeded. Beep, congratulations, you have obtained a new ability. This marks the end of Part 10 of the story Marvel Unlimited Skills, I Can Download. Thank you for listening. Please like the video and hit the subscribe button to listen more. Hit the bell icon to get notified of all the new content uploaded to the channel ASAP.